The Third Epistle of John, Analytically Expounded, by David Dickson. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The contents. Gaius, to whom the apostle writes, was a Jew by country, a Christian by religion, a man rich and very liberal to the saints, in favour with the church where he lived, and esteem with his minister, ambitious Diotrephes, as is gathered out of this very epistle. From hence the apostle exhorts him to entertain freely those ministers of the gospel who brought these, as it were, letters of commendation to him, and when they departed to vouchsafe them all things belonging to their journey. The parts of the epistle are three. In the first is the preface, to verse 3. In the second is the stirring up of Gaius, to persevere in the exercise of his charity and liberality towards the saints, to verse 13. In the third is the conclusion. Verse 1. The elder unto the well-beloved Gaius, whom I love in the truth. Verse 2. Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth. In the direction of the epistle from himself to Gaius, he declares his respects towards him in the repetition of a friendly compilation. 2. In his special profession of sincere love towards him. 3. In praying for him, that God would continue a prosperous condition unto him, chiefly that he would preserve him in that prosperity of mind which he hath hitherto shown in the exercise of faith and love. Verse 3. For I rejoiced greatly when the brethren came and testified of the truth that is in thee, even as thou walkest in the truth. The second part of the epistle follows, wherein he exhorts him to persevere in the demonstration of his love to the saints, and namely to some of the servants of God who brought this epistle to him. There are 11 arguments to prove that Gaius ought to go forward in the duties of charity. Argument 1. From the former demonstration of his sincere faith working by love. Thou hast obtained a very commendable testimony of thy sincerity from the brethren which came from thee, who have had experience of thy liberality, and hath given me cause both of rejoicing in thy behalf and giving thanks to God, and thee also. Therefore it is thy duty to proceed in the duties of charity. Verse 4. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in truth. Argument 2. Confirming and explaining the former, no greater joy can betide me than that my disciples, which I have begotten to God through the gospel, do daily proceed in the exercises of faith and love. Verse 5. Beloved, thou dost faithfully whatsoever thou dost to the brethren and to strangers. Argument 3. The works of mercy and charity which thou exercisest towards the holy servants of God and strangers demonstrate thee to be truly faithful, therefore proceed in them. Verse 6. Which have borne witness of thy charity before the church, whom if thou bring forward on their journey after a godly sort, thou shalt do well. Argument 4. The brethren which bring these letters to thee have borne witness openly of thy charity in the public assembly of the church, therefore go forward both to deserve well of them and others. Thou shalt do well. Argument 5. If now thou shalt receive those that come unto thee as thou hast before, and furnish them when they depart from thee, both with all things necessary for their journey, and accompany them somewhat in their way to another place, as it becomes thee, and is a thing befitting thee to accompany the ministers of God, thou shalt do an excellent office, and work that becometh thy piety towards God. Therefore see that thou do it. Verse 7. Because that for his name's sake they went forth, taking nothing of the Gentiles. Argument 6. To preach the name of God, or the gospel of Christ, who is God, they went forth of their own accord, taking nothing of the Gentiles, nor of those that were converted, nor of those that were not, lest they should give occasion to any of saying that they preached the gospel to the Gentiles for advantage. Therefore deal thou more liberally with these. Verse 8. Therefore we ought to receive such, that we might be fellow helpers to the truth. Argument 7. All that favour the preaching of the gospel are bound to promote the endeavours of men, as far as they are able, that they may share in the work of the gospel, by sustaining or some way assisting the preachers of it. Therefore be thou not wanting herein. Verse 9. I wrote unto the church, but Diotrephes, who loveth to have the preeminence among them, receiveth us not. For this end I have written to the church, wherein thou wast, that by the public charges they might have provision necessary for their journey, but I am afraid of their success, because that ambitious Diotrephes, who endeavours to have the preeminence over all the rest of his fellows, may undervalue both me and my letters of commendation. Verse 10. Wherefore, if I come, I will remember his deeds which he doth, prating against us with malicious words, and not content therewith, neither doth he himself receive the brethren, and forbiddeth them that would, and casteth them out of the church. The apostle adviseth him that he will deal with this ambitious lover of preeminence before the church when he comes, and gives 5 reasons of his purpose. Reason 1, because Diotrephes did many evil deeds. Reason 2, because he did prate against the apostles with malicious words, namely against John, whom he knew to be an enemy to ambition and human episcopacy, creeping into the church through the ambition and devices of these kind of men. Reason 3, because he did neither entertain nor did bestow any kind of respect upon the true Christians that held fast the doctrine of the apostles in all things. Reason 4, because by his tyrannical injunctions and constitutions threatening excommunication and casting out of the church, he prohibits, who entertained and received those preachers with all Christian officers that were, here there is a lacuna in the text, by the apostles, if they did contrary to his commands. Reason 5, because he did imperiously excommunicate those that transgressed his commands and did entertain this kind of brethren. Verse 11, Beloved, follow not that which is evil, but that which is good. He that doth good is of God, but he that doth evil hath not seen God. Argument 9. Thou oughtest not to follow the evil carriage of thy pastor Diotrephes, or obey his wicked commands, because this would be evil and contrary to true faith and love towards God, but thou oughtest to follow that only which is good and agreeable to sound doctrine. Therefore go on in exercising the duties of love. He that doth good, argument 10, confirming the former, he that endeavours to do good is born of God, but he that doth evil is void of the true and saving knowledge of God or faith in him. Therefore go thou on to do good, that thou mayest approve thyself to be of God. Verse 12, Demetrius hath good report of all men and of the truth itself. Yea, and we also bear record, and ye know that our record is true. Argument 11. Thou oughtest rather to imitate Demetrius, his kindness towards the saints and poor strangers, of whom all and the very truth of the thing, showing itself in deeds, gives testimony, and I myself, who am not wont to affirm, unless it be those things which are true, and I know by experience, and do give testimony of his praise. Therefore imitate him, and go on in the duties of charity. Verse 13, I had many things to write, but I will not with ink and pen write unto thee. Verse 14, but I trust I shall shortly see thee, and we shall speak face to face. The conclusion remains, wherein are 2 articles. In the first he excuses the shortness of his epistle, hoping to see and talk face to face with him. Verse 15, Peace be to thee, our friends salute thee, greet the friends by name. In the second article, 1. He salutes Gaius by wishing peace to him, i.e. the blessing of God in all things. 2. He doth hearty commendations to Gaius and his friends, viz. The saints who were his true friends. 3. He wills him to salute in his name particularly and by name all his friends, i.e. who loved him.